So thank you very much for joining me, Kabir, for this brief interview to share your experiences with your recent workshop that you did with Bold Idea and sort of what you gained from that experience. So just for the audience to learn a little bit more about you, tell me a little bit about yourself, such as your grade and any of your interests outside of school.
Okay, so my name's Kabeer. I'm in eighth grade, and outside of school, I like to, I guess, just play video games and do a lot of stuff with computers.
Nice. And that definitely fuels the interest for, the different types of workshops that you've seen with Bold Idea. Speaking of which, was this your first semester or have you been with Bold Idea for some time?
This was the first one.
Okay, cool. And how is that experience compared to, what you've done in the past or having this more mentorship with working with coding?
I haven't really had anything similar in the past.
Hmm.
I think I thought it was fun because I got to like do stuff at my own pace and learn things and ask questions that I needed help with while still like being able to do what I wanted.
Right. That's a nice format with the workshop where we have like a general format that helps you guide towards the end goal, but really in terms of creativity and how you can get assistance, it's really on demand, which you don't get nearly as much of that experience during your normal school days. So glad to hear that you had a good experience with your recent workshop. So, with regards to your interest with video gaming and with coding, do you know if there was a passion for it prior to looking into this workshop, or just wanted to try this out for the first time when you first heard about it?
So I was like coding, I don't know, I started coding like 3 months before
Hmm.
the workshop, but mostly just Java.
Okay.
So my dad found it and he thought that it would be a good idea to learn Python because he said it was good. So I was like, okay, I'll do it. And it turned out to be good.
Awesome.
And
Yeah,
I
and
learned
that's
Python.
no, that's awesome, and definitely you'll have more experiences along the line. I would say I'm more on the IT background, so I've done a little bit of Java, C++, C, and Python is definitely something that's consistent even when you go into higher education. So that's definitely a strong skill that you have now that most of kids your age actually won't have until later on. So definitely on a strong foot for you. Um, so let's talk a little bit about working with the mentors. What was sort of the best experience that you got since you're able to have this project and trying to provide this collaboration as part of coding?
I think the best experience was when I was trying to do like the creative project. I was trying to get started and solve some problems. Instead of just like doing the code for me, they told me, like, broke it down, showed me some different options I could do, and let me choose and let me do what I wanted. And even though they could have just like gave me the code and said, "Oh, this is that," they
Right.
like helped explain it and let me actually do it myself.
Right, which is actually in my opinion, one of the better learning experiences that you can have, where there's that balance between teaching and troubleshooting, but at the same time, understanding, where I've gone wrong, what's the best ways to solve the issue, and seeing how you can work with someone so that instead of struggling on your own or having the easy way out and having some code presented to you, you get more value in terms of how you're able to resolve it, not only with your mentor, but also, trying to go through those troubleshooting steps as well. So definitely awesome. So at this time, tell me a little bit about the project that you actually engaged in that you'll be sharing your screen shortly here.
Okay, so for my project, I like didn't have that much time to complete anything, so I chose to do a checkers game, and it just works based off some a lot of arrays, and uh, it's a bit weird, and it's definitely not the best thing I could have done, best way I could have made it, but I think it turned out pretty well, and I enjoyed doing it.
Yeah, and I know we have a few more questions to kind of share your experiences for that, but I definitely remember when working with you, like when you talk about the game of checkers, it sounds so simple, but when we're actually trying to implement that logic and how we present that to the players, you realize, how much more complex it can be beyond what we've, provided for the initial projects that we had. And definitely you got some good experiences for that because what you experienced for troubleshooting and trying to resolve for your code, those are similar challenges that typical computer scientists kind of go through when it comes to those specific kinds of projects. So we'll be able to talk a little bit more about your experiences here shortly. But when you're ready, Kabir, can you please share your screen so we can actually see a brief demo of what the game looks like in action?
So this is the game. I uh, wrote notes down on half of it just so I could, if I ever wanted to come back.
Right, which is definitely an
Uh,
excellent best practice.
yep. So if we just run it, we got the game window, and here what we can do is basically this is just meant to be played against two people. Say you're like next to each other and you don't have a checkers board or checkers
Right.
pieces or anything. You can just play this with your friend. So you can move the pieces. So first you just click on the piece you want to move and then click where you want to move it. And then the other person can go. So let's say he wants to move here. And then you can go again and they can go. And you can also like take their pieces. Uh yeah, you can take their pieces. They can take yours.
Hmm.
And it's checkers. That's what it is.
Right. And that's definitely a great representation, especially given the short time that you had to deploy this during your time within the workshop. And just for the audience, what did the original project used to be before you modified this to this checkers game, if you remember?
Like the pie game one.
So yeah, so essentially for the rest of everyone, so essentially in order to build upon this creative project, we had to use the original template, which was just the brick game where you just use the little platform and try to get rid of all the bricks. So really just incorporating that original project and really just seeing how we can build upon that specific logic. Can you go
Yeah.
back to your source code, Kabir, just so I
Oh,
can
okay.
help you with the next question for this game?
Here.
So I know one very interesting thing that with the mentors that you're working with was something that you definitely learned for the first time and was part of our roadmap when troubleshooting was learning about 2D arrays. Can you give me a little bit of a brief summary of what you experienced when learning about that?
Yeah, so previously in Java, I knew a lot about 2D arrays, but in Python, it was just completely different, except mostly just defining them
Hmm.
is just different in Python than Java. So that was like a big learning step for me, and I think mentors really helped me able to do that because that's my entire basis for the game. That was my idea going into it. I decided that I'm going to make the game on 2D arrays,
Hmm.
and it just worked out that way. Of course, this probably wasn't the best way to do it because you do run into some problems later on, which required a lot of extra code,
Right.
but it worked out in the end. So I think it was for the best.
No, and that does at least looks like a very stable build of what we expect to have a typical checkers game. And there's definitely a lot of areas of improvement if you wish to continue to work on it. If you did have the opportunity, whether on your own time or even working with other mentors about how to improve your game, what are some maybe two or three things that you'd like to add to make this a better build for your game?
So one thing I would like to do is I would probably just revamp the entire thing, and instead of using these arrays of true and false,
Hmm.
I would use arrays storing the actual objects of the checkers pieces.
Right.
So I did begin to do that with one of these versions, if I can
Hmm.
find it here, I think. So in this version, instead of having the true and false arrays, we have these arrays storing
Yep.
all these different pieces.
Hmm.
So I would probably just try to revamp it and continue on with this version of the game because this version is a lot less code needed to
Right.
figure things out and fix it. So I just chose not to go with this because I was already so far on the other one.
Right. Right.
But if I could go back and do it again, I would do it this way.
And honestly, that's actually a very important lesson that you just mentioned, where essentially we understand that, especially for more complex programs or with games, there's going to be hundreds, thousands, even hundreds of thousands of codes of lines of code. But ultimately, we want to try to make this as simplest as possible for the coder. So just understanding that you're able to understand the logic by being able to start with 2D arrays and just using the literal logic to find out which are the pieces that are available on your game board, but then try to shift to a more object oriented style, which is actually familiar from the Java side, but you can also incorporate that with the Python approach as well. So that's definitely a good key takeaway, and that can actually help to accelerate some of the troubleshooting that you might have in the future. So awesome. Thank you very much for that, Kabir. So what I'd like to ask is whether this is something that you're currently engaged in this semester, if you're participating with Bold Idea, or maybe in the future. Is there another creative project that you like to do, whether relating to Python or any other interest in the future?
Yeah, so I'm currently doing Bold Idea again this semester, and this semester I'm trying to do a chess game just so I can use
Ooh.
some of my code from the last for my last project and see if I can build on top of it. Because as many of people know, chess is definitely a more complicated game than checkers, but
Right.
some of the things are the same.
Exactly. And really, if you think about it, the basic premise of the pawns are almost identical with the checkers, just adjusting the logic slightly. So definitely that's something that you can easily build upon and leverage your mentors to provide some troubleshooting as well. So definitely awesome. So, in terms of the last question, and this is definitely something that is your key takeaway, as well as maybe even other people who watch this video in the future can learn from you, just because, especially with your generation, you're definitely lucky to have a lot of these opportunities to learn technology at an earlier age, and that eventually will make you have a stronger portfolio once you start looking for internships, jobs, or trying to work for some cool video game companies or tech companies that usually try to look for experience from a college perspective, but your resume already starts right from the middle of middle school and even high school. So, from your experience, what would be a key takeaway with regard to why students should learn computer science at an early age?
I think it's just best to learn at an early age because it can be useful in everything. Math, you can use computer science a lot. Not You can use a lot of coding in like higher math to help you do your problems.
Mm-hmm,
One example that I was like, my sister, she's 22. She just graduated college. She
mm-hmm,
just got a job, right? And she's a chemistry. She got a degree in chemistry, but
mm-hmm.
her job, when she went to the training, they had to teach her how to code and stuff. And I was,
Right,
and she like called me and was like, "Hey, how do I do this?" And she's very, I don't want computer, not that good with computers,
right, right,
and we had to walk her through how to do everything, and she had to actually learn how to do some coding because she just didn't know how to do it earlier for a chemistry job, and that's
right.
just not something you would think. So even if you're not going to pursue computer science as a career, you may still want to learn it because it's probably going to come in useful in the future no matter what.
Right. And I'm glad you actually said that, because my two key takeaways from what you said was that pretty much compared to, 10 years ago, there's technology in everything, and there has to be some sort of source code that's associated to it. Our cars have it, our homes have it. It's not just stuck to our own phones or computers anymore. Really, everything can actually have some sort of technology in it. And that means that regardless of what field that you're interested in for your future job, that there is going to be some sort of coding that could be associated to it. So if you have that skill set, you're essentially a very essential resource whenever you're able to look into that for your particular career. So definitely awesome. And then second is really just leveraging the experience of the younger generation. So if you think about all the adults nowadays and trying to support current technologies, they don't have time to be able to learn the newer technologies that help to innovate our society. So they definitely need new blood essentially to be able to learn these technologies fast while they're still young, and they'll be able to provide a much more significant impact once they start off with their first careers. So you're definitely at a good roadmap to get there, especially with learning and experiences that you've had with Bold Idea. So I would say, would you recommend trying to your friends or your peers, if they did have the opportunity to work with Bold Idea, especially now that we're able to support remote workshops?
I think definitely if you have the time and you like want to learn and you're ready to learn, I think you should go on and sign up because it's a good experience and it's a good way to get ahead in a way, and just learn computer science, learn coding, and be able to do all these things in the future.
Exactly. Start early, and you have a very strong way of getting ready and prepared once you have to, consider like internships or even a lot of things. The best way to summarize, especially for those early, especially within your grade or even younger or even in high school, is that for whatever company that you see as your dream job, they're always going to try to look for experiences. And the younger, the better. That just showcases how passionate you are for the company. So sometimes I've heard when having other mentees for professional experiences saying, oh, this is my dream job. I really want to work for this company. And it's like, well, does your, resume speak for itself? And it's like, oh, I only started learning during college, which is actually traditional. But if you're able to start, learning about coding at an early age and that applies to your dream job, that just gives you a much stronger footprint compared to the rest of your colleagues to actually get that dream job. So definitely that's a good key takeaway. And Kabir, you're definitely on the right track. So I'm definitely glad to hear that you got a lot from your experience with Bold Idea, and definitely good luck with your chess game as well. So, Kabir, thank you very much for having this interview. Greatly appreciated, and looking forward to your success moving forward.
All right.
All right, sounds good. Thank you so much, Kabir.